Figen Murray is the driving force behind the Terrorism Protected Premises Bill, commonly known as Martyn's Law. She's recently hit the headlines because she's taken on a 200-mile walk from Manchester Arena down to number 10 Downing Street to raise awareness for her campaign to bring in this new piece of legislation. But who is she and why is she so intertwined with Martyn's Law? Hello, my name's Luke from Equilibrium Risk, and hopefully in this short video we'll be going through who Figen Murray is and why she is connected to Martyn's Law. So Figen Murray was born in Istanbul and moved to the UK and spent 23 years working as a counsellor. Now in May 2017, her son, called Martyn went to Manchester Arena to watch a Ariana Grande concert. Unfortunately, he was one of the 22 victims that died that night because of a terrorist attack. Now, this incident didn't immediately motivate her to campaign for a new piece of legislation. It was a couple of years later when she was attending a public concert at a venue. She'd put off going to that sort of event because she was worried that the extra security, the bag searches, that sort of stuff would remind her of her loss of her son. When her husband eventually convinced her to go to an event, she found out that this heightened security, these extra bag searches, were nowhere in place. She didn't get her tickets checked, she didn't have her bag searched, she went straight into the venue, as did everybody else attending that night. So her fears were completely unfounded, but it felt as if nothing had changed. The Manchester Arena bombing hadn't taken place. The 22 victims had more or less died for nothing. So it's following that night that she decided that something had to change, and she started doing some research, and she discovered that there was no legislation that forced venue operators, that forced event organisers to take any protective measures to protect their patrons from a terrorist attack. The closest thing to a piece of legislation was the crowded place is guidance, which is a very valuable resource that helps enhance security measures at public spaces. But it's not legislation, it was only guidance. So Figen Murray began her campaign to change that and force venue operators and event organisers to take proactive steps in protecting people from a terrorist attack. Now, her campaign began from her kitchen table back in 2019. She created a petition that said that she wanted bag searches, metal detectors and security measures at big public spaces, and it gained 23,000 signatures. And since then she's been meeting regularly with herself, and her co-campaigners have been meeting regularly with local government officials, local government ministers, to talk about how they can implement this strategy into improving security measures at local venues. She also realised that she didn't know anything about terrorism or counter-terrorism. So she started and she completed a master's degree in counter-terrorism. She's been made a doctorate at Salford University, and she's also a visiting fellow of the Strategic Risk Management Institute. And she regularly visits schools and colleges and universities to talk to young people about how about radicalisation and the effects of terrorism, to try and prevent the atrocities of the Manchester Arena bombing happening again. And it's working. Back in November 2023, the Terrorism Protection Premises Bill was mentioned in the King's Speech. And more recently, the new legislation has finished its second public consultation. But there is still a long way to go, and it's hoped that the new legislation will come into force within the next 6 months. I think the story of Figen Murray highlights what can happen and what can be achieved with a bit of dedication. But more importantly, it shows us that this new piece of legislation is not about just simply complying with it. It's about making spaces safe, making people feel safe so they can go around and go about their lives without fear of a terrorist attack. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it interesting.